shit is crazy.
Right.
This shit is fucking crazy because, you know, in times past, okay, so two things. Trauma is probably very common in most people who have mental illness
Right.
in their background. They've
Right.
probably experienced some kind of trauma at some point in their lives. And so I am no different. And I've experienced complex trauma, right? So I have that going on in the background, but I really felt like I did a lot of work in those areas. So that's not really, the thing that's bothering me
Okay.
now. Now it is, my whole spiritual journey and where I am moving forward in my life.
Mhm.
And this thing is a trip because it feels like it moves me along, progresses me, and then, takes away and I get stalled.
Hey guys, this is another episode of the podcast. That was a clip from my friend Deanna Robinson, who returns on this very fun episode. Deanna was on the podcast almost 3 years ago, about the May 2021, and it's good to have her back. She's been a great friend. We get to do NAMI in our own voice presentations together. So, without further ado, here's the rest of the conversation with Deanna Robinson.
So schizoaffective disorder is, when you have symptoms of schizophrenia as well as symptoms of a mood disorder. And in my case, it's bipolar disorder and bipolar one at that. So I have the psychotic breaks.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah.
So the medication is both for schizophrenia and bipolar. It's like a
Yep,
combo.
yep,
Okay.
yep. So I take an antipsychotic,
Okay.
um, which I'm on the lowest dose that I can take and still get some benefit. And I want to be on the lowest dose. I actually had a conversation with my psychiatrist and just told him this is too strong. I can't think. I can't do anything. I can't remember anything. When I talk, everything's so slow. My mind is slowed down. The vibrancy of my personality is gone. Like I can't do this. This is not going to work. We
Right.
gotta do something. And so he took the dosage down. And I'm telling you, it just made all the difference in the world. And I know that there are plenty of us who are over medicated. I see it all the
Okay.
time. Like I see it all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful that I'm one that is surviving off of a minimal dose. Now I still hear voices all the time. It doesn't stop that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Perhaps in some folks, and I know in the past, what has happened is when I'm manic, I'll go into the hospital, they'll give me an antipsychotic, I'll come down, and then I won't hear voices anymore, once I'm down. But what has happened most recently, and I'll just say in the last couple years, in the last year, what's happened most recently is I'll be way up and I'll hear voices very, very intensely. But then I'll come down, the voices will still be there. Then I'll go up a little bit, the voices are still there. Then I go down a little bit, the voices are still there. I go way up, the voices are still, so the voices don't stop anymore as they did before. So that's why I got the diagnosis. It was bipolar one with psychotic features, but now it's a schizoaffective disorder because I have, people with schizophrenia, they hear voices all the time. Like that's a feature of
Right.
schizophrenia. And now, that I hear voices all the time, they have changed my diagnosis to schizoaffective disorder.
Okay. So you just like, because yeah, I know in the first podcast talked about how you're like trying to run out of a building, or or like how these traumatic kind of you experience trauma from, which makes sense. Like the voice telling you to do something dangerous, maybe to yourself or to someone else.
Hmm.
And obviously, you don't always follow follow it
It's
through, right?
really
And
something. It's really, really something, Jared, because I have to say, even though I have been through hell and back, I'm serious. This can I curse on your podcast?
yeah, yeah,
This shit is crazy.
right.
This shit is fucking crazy because, you know, in times past, okay, so two things. Trauma is probably very common in most people who have mental illness
Right,
in their background. They've
right.
probably experienced some kind of trauma at some point in their lives. And so I am no different. And I've experienced complex trauma, right? So I have that going on in the background, but I really felt like I did a lot of work in those areas. So that's not really, the thing that's bothering me
Okay.
now. Now it is, my whole spiritual journey and where I am moving forward in my life.
Mhm.
And this thing is a trip because it feels like it moves me along, progresses me, and then takes away, and I get stalled.
Mhm.
So this forward, consistent movement that I crave, I'm still trying to get there. So I one real thing that has helped me is just accepting that this is kind of where I am. And the reason why, I stopped you and said this is really crazy is because when you said you didn't necessarily go through with the things that the voices were saying, and the voices told me,
Right.
to touch someone inappropriately, to like jump on somebody, and even to jump out of a third story window. And the only reason why I'm alive and able to talk on the Louder Now podcast today is because
Yeah.
the voices right before I was going to jump, said stop,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
Because I was totally under I totally succumbed to the voices. I had no choice, right? Succumbed to the voices and what was happening, the extreme, body sensations, the extreme, auditory hallucinations and visions. And I mean, it was just really something else this particular day that I was going to jump out of the window. I have a good life. I have beautiful kids and grandkids and work that I enjoy, all that kind of stuff. I do not want to die by suicide, but I know that
Yeah.
I can come to harm unintentionally because of my symptoms. And like I say, I think that I am, even though I've been through hell and back, I think that I am a um, infinitely fortunate person who has this uh, condition. Like
Yeah.
I'm infinitely fortunate compared to many people who have this condition who are just not able to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say when you were talking about forward motion, I think that's um very big with this space and these talks, which is like, okay, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna go back to school, and or maybe sometimes we start feeling good, and it's not because you're like getting off your meds for a week. It's just like you're just feeling better, and there's multiple things that we can do that can make us feel good, and then you feel good about um trying to make progress, and then you're like in the progress, but then you start hearing voices, or someone who's bipolar, right? It's like then if you feel too good, maybe you get manic, and then you stop sleeping, and then you're like, oh no. So I think sometimes it's like if it's good, is that like too good to be true? You're like,
Right, right,
and that
exactly.
is that like a sabotage thing? Like, and I think people can do that and not have the mental illness. Like, oh, I'm in a healthy relationship now, and then you're like, nope, I'm gonna screw it up. I'm gonna screw up the love. And but yeah,
Hold up
it's
1 sec. Let me turn on my light because it's getting dark over here. Is that
not
okay?
the best
Just
light.
want to turn on my light.
We need to get another lamp. Sorry. This is about you, not me. People know what I look like. I look like Two-Face right now. I got like light, dark, light, dark.
Right, right.
Just
So
got back
maybe
from a
that's
vacation.
hopefully that's just a tiny
Yeah.
bit better.
Broke
Um,
broken foot. Just got back from a trip. Broken foot. Just got back from a trip. Just did it with the lighting. It's like light and dark. Yeah, like it's interesting because culture does like wanting to make an impact, right? Is a real thing, and we know this in our own voice. Which I feel like I need to rewrite my script because like the what's next part, right? It's always like, yeah, those are all the things I'm doing, yeah. And for some people, it's like, hey man, I'm just good enough to like do this presentation today, so that's what's next for me.
I'm telling you, like, seriously, some days it is like that for me too, which
Yeah,
is why I have such frustration because, like, I feel like I am a highly capable person, right? Like,
right.
just fucking highly capable person.
Yeah,
And I feel like this condition has thwarted my ability to have that forward moving momentum day after day after day that eventually gets you to where you want to be. I feel stalled all the time, like things are going well, and then,
right, right,
I begin to feel um lethargic and negative thoughts and body hurts and really really tired, and I'm like, god doggone it, where is this coming from now? And then I have several days, string those along, those days turn into weeks, the weeks turn into months, months turn into years, feeling like that.
yeah,
Fortunately, what has happened, and listen, there has not been much time in my life at all. And this is kind of sad to say, but then when I look at it from the perspective of everything that I've done, I'm like, ah, dang, I've still been able to do all that.
right.
But um, there has only been one time in my 55 years that I have not been in depression. Depression
Mhm.
first, because that most of my life is spent in depression. And then when I started, having manic episodes more frequently, um, I'd feel I'd have more of the fluctuating up and down, up and down, up and down, with the downs lasting longer than the ups do. But I experienced something very different when I was in California. I had, ups, but I stayed up,
Okay.
and I stayed up for 3 years. Like 2 years, faux show, no depression. Because I remember I was doing an In Our Own Voice presentation, and I started to cry because I was talking about how you're doing the what's next part, and the what helps part, and I was just thinking about my life over the last over that previous couple of years, and I
Right.
started crying because I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that I had not been depressed at all for 2 years. It was consistently feeling good, doing my thing, being involved in all kinds of stuff. It was awesome. I had lost all
Yeah.
of this weight. It was beautiful. Um,
Hmm.
but and what I've experienced since that time, because in California it started, right? And after I got the schizoaffective disorder diagnosis, because I was, again, hearing voices all the time, because I got that diagnosis, I just like went way down because I felt like I was getting worse, because instead of just bipolar one disorder, I was now like had this like really heavy diagnosis of, having schizophrenia and a mood disorder, making it schizoaffective disorder. I was like, whoa. So I stayed in a depression for like 3 years. And I'm just coming out of it like last year, believe it or not. I don't know if
Okay.
you could even believe that, but yeah.
Well, similar struggles here. I mean, I think that yeah, well, I think it's like, okay, so you talk about this 2 year time. where you didn't have depression, right? That's what you're saying. So, and I think it's kind of like, I feel like I've had this conversation with close friends, like, if you were to evaluate, like, what were you doing in that time? Now, the other layer is just the illness itself that just shows no mercy.
I'm telling you,
Right,
right?
right. But I
Right?
think it's kind of like from like a perspective of like wellness and health, it's like, you know, if I sit around and watch movies 16 hours a day, especially alone on a Saturday, which is not what I did, but I've done it many times, right? That's probably not going to make me feel
Many,
super.
many, many times. That's what you do in depression.
Well,
Many, many, many times. Like just binge watching shows
well,
just
right.
left and right.
I
Yeah.
mean, like it's always a lot of things. It's the combo. It's like, okay, well, some entertainment is good, but then if I was throwing in like fast, like door dashing boba and like McDonald's to my house while I was there, probably would not feel great the next day. And then I feel like I have to like tell someone about it. You know, they're like, "Oh, are you okay, dude?" You know, and so, but I think sometimes it's hard when we have all this pattern of setbacks that it can be hard to gravitate towards like what makes you feel good, you know.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think you like the what's next part. Well, I mean, the whole presentation in our own voice, we are hitting on a lot of things that help us cope. And it's like the obvious things are obvious, like love. That you have how many grandchildren? Seven?
7.
Five
Hmm.
kids, seven grandchildren. Is that still true?
Hmm.
That was you
Yep.
said that 3 years.
That's still true.
Cool. I have four nephews now, so
You
I know really running behind here. I need to catch up with my sister. Just kidding.
good? I think you're good. I think you can do it when you're ready to do it.
Um, I don't know. I don't know about being a dad, honestly. Not to change the subject, but no. Luckily from a family standpoint, I don't feel pressure. Like, so some family dynamics are like,
Yeah, yeah,
you better
yeah,
give me some grandchildren because I'm gonna die soon, or something, right? Like that kind of energy, and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
feel good, But
It's crazy because the stuff that people, will fight about, like, give me some grandkids, like, never even a thought in my mind. Never even a thought about it, not pressuring my children at all. But it's like, here you go.
well, yeah, the energy goes both ways because you're like your parents spent their whole life taking care of you, and then like my mom is like driving up to take me to my appointments tomorrow. So my mom is like still taking care of me to some extent, and I'm like
Mhm.
a grown adult, right? So it's like your parents never stop. So then you're like, yeah, but the having kids part, that's not any work for you. That's work for me. Well, and more for the woman, right? But
Yeah.
so anyway, but yeah, I think like what makes you feel good, and I think kind of like how can we just keep those good things in front of us like all the time, even though the setbacks still are probably gonna come. So yeah, like tell me about school because I never knew that you wanted to be a doctor of some kind, a surgeon, and I can't
Yeah.
remember. I don't think
Yeah.
we talked about it on
Neurosurgeon.
when.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'm shooting high. A
yeah.
neurosurgeon.
Okay.
Um, I am on a pre-med track right now. And so far, so good.
Okay, that's
In
awesome.
school, we'll see how this semester goes. I'm taking a little bit of a heavier load this semester. School starts in 1 week today. So I'm going to see how I do. I decided that I was going to drop a big project that I was working on. It's part of this entrepreneurship program, year long. You just research your business and, just really get that business together, put together a business proposal, go before a panel, make your argument about your work, and then you continue to be in the program until 6 months later, you have your whole business plan put together, go before the committee again, and then you could get a $15,000 grant for your business. And so what I just decided to do is school is more important to me and my mental health is important to me. So I already have a business. I, you know, netted about yeah, up in the tens, $1,000 in couple months. So I'm I'm okay. I'm okay. So school is so much more important. And even though my business like really fluctuates in terms of what it's pulling in on a monthly basis, and I'm an entrepreneur, so of course it's going to do that.
Right.
Um, I'm still comfortable that I'm at a level where I will consistently make at least a certain amount of money.
Right.
And so for me, it's just kind of like, okay, look, we got the business thing. We got that. We want to grow it and we want to, make it huge and big and all that good stuff. But I think that I can do that slowly as I am going to school, because school is the most important thing to me. I mean, above all else, of course, my kids, grandkids, love them, mwah, 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 chef's kiss. But school right now for me is everything. So,
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah, so I am studying to become a dual degree because I want to be a scientist too. And the reason why I'm so interested in this is for obvious reasons. I have a uh brain disorder. I'm neurodivergent. How about that? Because I don't even want to say disorder. I'm trying to find
That's a
new
better way
language
to
for
say
my
it. Yeah, that's a better
yeah.
way
So,
to
so
say
I'm so I'm trying to give myself new words to use when I
it. Right.
refer to my condition,
Yeah.
because I don't want to keep looking at it like, oh, something's wrong with me, I'm sick. And that is not helpful and productive for somebody who wants to be a freaking neurosurgeon. It's just not helpful and productive to say, oh, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I have a very different experience than everybody else. And I'm a very fortunate
Yeah.
person in that, I have insight into what is going on with me, and I am able to function at a reasonably high level with the serious mental illness that I have. So I'm fortunate in that regard. You wanted to say something?
Oh, yeah. No, no, no. We're just talking, but yeah, I love what you're sharing. Yeah, I just thought of like, yeah, I was gonna say, you just said it. Like when you're reading things and studying, because like I think like I feel like I struggle, and I don't think it's just because of medication, but like my memory is like really not super great,
Dude,
you know?
dude, what?
And
What?
I know,
What?
right. And you're studying stuff. I'm trying to read this book on AI from like one of the guys that was at Google. It's like three people. It's kind of boring. But and like the book club book we're reading right now is like it's talking about the neocortex and like I'm like I have no but part of how you learn is by reading hard things or listening to something that's like what the heck, and like you go, oh, I'm gonna have to go listen to that like 3 times. But I feel like if you forget that, like, yeah, how does it affect your school experience? Because I'm assuming you have to remember, like, medical, like anatomy, like when you watch medical shows, you're like, how do they know what that's called? It's always some
Yeah.
long, weird, you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
a
term. Hmm.
fibrillation, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, how do you know that? So how does it
Now
affect you?
I do have one advantage. When I was much younger, pardon me, I was a medical secretary for a urologist, for sports medicine, and for an orthopedic doctor. And so I know some medical terminology, and I know, some sort of like conversations I can have with doctors, and doctors will, oh, have you studied medicine, been in any and I'm just like, no, I know this kind of stuff. And
Right.
plus I the Bible school that I was going to married science and religion. So we actually talked about science and went into some technical detail about the body and how the body operates and the anatomy of the body and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
I'm versed a little teeny, easy, weeny bit.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what made
So
you, yeah, but is that how you got interested in it though? Because it's kind of like
no,
that's like what,
no,
yeah,
how I got interested in, and I know because I have ADHD, and I don't know
No,
if
so
that's
do I.
your diagnosis as well.
Gotta
Because
just take
we
turns.
will
Ready,
jump
go.
around and jump around.
Where's my
But
assistant? They'll come in and say, "Ready, talk." Here you go. Quiet. Listen. Oh, it's raining. They're not here. Just kidding. I don't have an assistant, guys. That was a joke. So Chat GPT can
so
become my assistant. How about
so I got interested in doing and I'm just going to be like real frank about it. I got interested in doing neurosurgery and neuroscience, a dual degree, an MD and a PhD in research of the brain neurology, a neuroscientist and a neurosurgeon. That's what my goal is.
that?
And I
Okay.
got interested in those things because one, I do like research. I like to find new stuff, right? I like to
Okay.
think very logically about information that currently exists and some information that's interesting to me that I like to infuse in information that already exists to see, what makes sense, where it makes sense, and how it can be applied and benefited to the larger, audience, so to speak. So, um, the science definitely interests me, and I cannot wait to learn what it is I don't know about the body and about the brain. I'm so excited about that. I don't even know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
But I got interested when I was um in a elevated state, right?
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, I'm finding new language, man, finding new language. So
I like that.
in
Elevated state. Got it.
yeah. So when I was in an elevated state, I would even call it a state of enlightenment. Um,
Yeah.
it became very clear to me that um, in order for me to make the kind of impact that I'm telling you, oh, I would just be so grateful and so thankful. But in order for me to make the kind of impact that I would like to make, I have to be learning, right? I have to have a high degree of knowledge, and nobody respects a profession more than they do that of a doctor. Like, and I'm sure people respect other, but you say you're a doctor, immediate you get
Yeah.
respect. So, and it's
That's
not
true.
even for me. It's
Yeah.
not even for me about the respect. Okay, that's great. Of course, everybody wants respect, but that's not chief to me. What is chief to me is having the knowledge and the experience, the expertise to help people in my community, to
Right.
be one that is regarded well enough to have an impact on my community, that I might say things that other people can't say because I have some lived experience and I have some theory and knowledge and expertise in what it is I'm talking about. So what I see myself doing is being more engaged in the political process in our country. Not right away, but I see myself in some respect being more
Mm.
engaged. The reason why that's important to me is because I'm sick and fucking tired of seeing so consistently the racism that is so prevalent in this country. The whole idea of white supremacy is just gross and disgusting to me, and the lever doesn't seem to be moving. In
Mm.
just it seems to be regressing, just getting worse, and you see more and more incidents. And maybe that's because we have cameras now, but you see more
Right.
and more incidences of people, we call them Karens. That we have that segment. We see, how racism infiltrates itself into the work environment, into corporate America, into media, into sports, into every single aspect of American life. And it is absolutely grotesque. It is disgusting. And the fact that we have allowed it to permeate for as long as it has permeated, it is a great cancer in the country. So for me, in order for us to really exercise some justice in the country and equity for everyone, is to have and galvanize um, a collective, and really, you know, a collective and inclusive bunch of leaders that are really interested in moving the needle, so that we actually can live a life where we are thriving, where, everybody's happy, everybody's content. And listen, I know people are like, oh, you're talking about a utopia and you talk about da da da. Well, why the fuck not? I mean, if we're gonna talk about dystopia, and zombies walking around, and it's just everything's war torn and nobody's doing well, except just a couple of little rich people that got rich off of everybody else. I'm so tired of that. You have no idea. Like, I'm tired and I'm angry about seeing my people be the ones at the uh bottom of the totem pole. I'm disgusted at seeing how Black women, most particularly, are indeed at the bottom of the totem pole. Everybody else is allowed to just live, and Black women are just fucking not. Like, everything we do, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So, as you can see, I'm very passionate and feel very
Yeah.
convicted
No,
about
no, it's
these
good. I'm not
particular topics.
laughing at the
So,
subject.
and you might
Yeah.
say, well, how does medicine and what you're talking about go together?
Yeah.
I think that um, the world, not just this country, but the world, is in a collective psychosis. Folks is out of their fucking minds, just have exited sanity. So, I really want to understand the science behind abnormal psychology, right? And I think that my knowledge and expertise around abnormal psychology will definitely inform my political stances, and and social justice stances, and how we create chaos and create a mess because we have no sanity and logic and reason, and this we do this whole thing with intellectualism, but we leave the heart out of it. We think that spirituality is soft and loopy and just a hippie, and we don't pay attention to it. But I think we have put the cart before the horse, because if the things that we do are not driven by empathy and kindness and love and justice and freedom and all of those ideals, if our behavior and actions aren't led that way, then what happens is what the fuck we've got now. I mean, capitalism has, oh my goodness. I mean, we could have conversations around politics and like pulling social justice
Well,
issues
no,
and
it's,
things like
I
that
mean,
apart.
you're
That,
talking about a lot of important stuff. Sorry, not to interrupt you.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, I think, when we talked 3 years ago, it was like, oh, we're 1 year into COVID or whatever. I think and then now it's like a lot of stuff did come to the surface during the pandemic in terms of political craziness. I mean, I'm not super political on this podcast necessarily, but
Yeah.
Trump's probably going to be president again. I mean, that's part of the craziness, right? You're like,
And that's that. When he got in office the first time, it was the beginning of the end. If he gets into office again, and everybody's saying it's a strong likelihood
yeah.
that he will, democracy is over. We're done. Look, you heard it here first. Democracy is fucking done.
There we go.
Uh,
Prophetic gets put this out there, and then we'll come back and you make a lot of money because you.
I
Well,
mean,
no, I agree with. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
done.
Yeah.
It's done. He's telling you plain, right in your face. He is saying presidents should have immunity, should not be get in trouble for
Mhm.
anything, even stuff that crosses the line. Presidents should have total and complete immunity. I'm sorry, that's a dictator. That's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
That's authoritarian. That's not democratic. And we're a democratic republic. And people keep saying, oh, this is a republic, as if republic means Republican.
Well, yeah, part of the well, yeah. So the thing you said, collective psychosis, I feel like that's been on like a Joe Rogan podcast before or something. But like,
I'm
yeah,
sorry, say again.
I feel like that's been on like a Joe Rogan podcast. Like he had this doctor on, and I think that guy used that phrase or um collective psychosis. Yeah, I think well, yeah, I mean, and so part of it's like if it is democratic, then we vote, right? And so we
Mhm.
voted to put Trump in power the first time, and
Well,
that,
what happened
and then
was
now it's like, is
half
that
of
going
the
to happen? Yeah,
country, what
yeah,
happened, Jared, was half of the country didn't even vote,
yeah.
particularly Democrats. Didn't even bother to vote because a couple of days before the election, James Comey came out and said, we have to investigate Hillary again. And then, of course, everybody was like, none of these people are good. I'm just not even going to
Oh,
vote.
right. Well, more people I think turned out in 2020, but that was,
Yeah, a whole
I
hell of a
guess,
lot of
for
people
the
turned out
purpose
in
of.
2020. So
Yeah,
anyway, we
well,
can get off of
no,
politics. We can
I
get off.
know. No, it's okay. Well, yeah, it just seems like it's kind of like Gladiator, the movie. He goes like, "Is there no one else?" Right when he's like fighting and like killing people, right? And it's kind of like it feels like that with you're like this is it's kind of like an all-star team in a sport. You're like, this is the best of the best from all over, all in one team. And politics, it's like, is this the best that we can come up with? Is all these people, and most people end up dropping out of the race anyway.
Yeah,
The people that seem like that guy could be good, and then it's
I
like,
think
nope,
I think
nope.
what has happened
Mhm.
is truly a travesty. We had some sense of decorum and order before President Trump.
Right,
All presidents had some sort of, you know, um, dignity in the way that they, carried the office and carried themselves, dignity with their family, just having some sense of what's the word I'm looking to, decorum, integrity, some of these
right.
things were showcased, right? With presidents before Trump got into office. And our first Black president, um, love him or hate him, think he did a great job or not. I'm sorry, there's not a president before or after who has done 100% of what everybody has wanted them to do. That's just stupid. And so Barack Obama, no different, didn't do 100% of what everybody wanted him to do, but he did have some great things that he was able to accomplish while in office. I think chief being that you ain't gonna get, a house party every weekend at the fucking White House because a Black man is there, and fried chicken party and watermelon party and everybody twerking and shit. That was not what was going on there. It was a well-run, well-ordered country, as opposed to what came
Right.
after that, which was just fucking chaos. So it was a response
Right.
because I started off talking about how this country's very fabric, it is sewn into the flag that this country is racist as fuck. And if you don't see that, then I'm sorry, you are deeper into the psychosis than most of us. It's everywhere. So the country's answer to the first Black man being president, or Black person being president of the United States, was Trump. That was their response. Give us a guy who is going to put things back in order, make
Yeah.
America great again. When the fuck was it great ever for folks other than straight up white people
Hmm.
or people with fairer skin? When was it ever great for everybody else?
Well, I mean, you would understand more than me, obviously. So
So yeah,
yeah, well, yeah, we are primarily I mean, we would like to think there's more diversity in America because of people coming to this country. So I don't know what there's 340 million people here, but
and
yeah,
every
it's
single one of
still,
them shit on black people. Every single one of them is like, let's all galvanize and get on
well,
black
how do you
people.
think
It's crazy.
how do you think it changes though? I mean, obviously that's a big question and a big problem. I mean, do you see that there's progress in this or not? I
Fuck
mean,
no.
or
Fuck
do you think
no. Not in any
it's
regard.
a top down kind of thing? Like we would need
In
another,
the case right
yeah.
now, when Trump became president, you can see that right away it was going downhill in terms of race relations because Mexicans were rapists and criminals, and you had Muslims and Arabs who were terrorists and pardon me, killers. And Asians, when the COVID thing happened, Asians were the cause of COVID. So Asians were being attacked indiscriminately, and all of this under Trump's
Mhm.
regime. And he called the doggone COVID virus the Kung flu. I'm sorry. Are you kidding
The
me?
Kung Flu?
It's the Kung flu. You know
The
how
Kung
you
Flu.
got Kung Fu, right?
Right.
And Kung Fu is Asian, China. I'm not sure, but certainly Asian. And he dubbed the COVID uh, virus as Kung Flu. So fucking racist. It's blatant. It's in your face. So what
Also, you
what
can use Clorox spray, Lysol into your
exactly,
skin
and
or
you can
whatever that
inject
one.
yourself with
Yeah, yeah.
Clorox and all that kind of stuff. I just
Oh
don't
boy, guys.
understand what people are
All right, let's
seeing
move. Let's
in
move
this
to another
guy.
country, guys. Ready? Let's go. Where are we all going to move to?
Where are we going to move to? Well, how do we do a nice little segue from where we were
Well, I
to
was going to ask you
where we're
too.
going to go?
I appreciate we're just talking. So it's,
Yeah.
I have an opinion on politics too. And I mean, I think being a white male in America, it's like, not that I can't talk about racism, but I think sometimes I'm like, be careful what I say about that. And I think a lot of
Why
people,
why can you tell me why you as a white man have to be careful about what you say
well,
about
no, I
like
think
what are the nuances that you're talking about?
well, I mean, I think more, I don't want to talk about something I don't really understand
Understand.
too
Got you.
well.
Got you. Got you.
So I
Okay.
mean it more like
That's smart.
careful
That's
as in
smart.
like respectful, right?
That's smart. That's
But
smart.
you could take that too far and then never look into it, never have uh I make a lot of people's experience like okay, like growing up in church, right? Like another subject would be like, homosexuality or these things, right? And this idea of like when you grow up in church, people see that as a sin. So those people are like outcasts, treat them like a homeless person. Like you're not allowed. I mean, God loves you, but you're not allowed to come hang out here. So I think what helps us understand that better is having friendships with people who are gay and lesbian or bisexual or all these things and not everybody has the church background. I'm just using that as an example. But
Sure,
like
sure.
where I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado, there was like very few African American, I mean black people. And
Mm-hmm.
still
Mm-hmm.
to this day, now I live in LA, although where I'm at feels okay, I'd have a better chance of having. So I just mean more like I think there's a way to understand it, but it comes through relationships. That's one way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important with mental health because well, I don't know if I want to repeat something you said at the support group, but I did like what you said
Go ahead.
to
Go
one of
ahead.
the guys, how you were like, you're a young black man and you're in a support group on a Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's very commendable. It's much harder, and so yeah, I guess it's like these things have been going. Yeah, that's what I mean. Just to clarify, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, but yeah, if you say you want to be careful, but then you don't understand it, well, then you end up saying nothing. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like, oh well, it
And
pisses you off, but I don't know.
right,
That's kind
right.
of passive. You know.
So here's what I would say to folks who don't understand but have some desire to, right?
Okay.
And hopefully everyone would have a desire to heal the country. And I think that is we have a lot of problems. We do. We
Yeah.
have a lot of problems. But I think that sexuality, race, and gender are ruling the day. I think the inequities between the wealthy, very just ridiculously wealthy, and poor people, that that gap is so huge. And we could talk about a lot of values that people have around the such a great disparity in one of the richest countries in the world, if not the. So most of the population is can't can hardly afford rent or mortgage.
Right.
It's
Right.
more people are becoming homeless now. I think it's like homelessness since the pandemic is like up 30%.
Oh
And
wow.
of the 30% of folks that are homeless, I think 15% of those are families. And of the 30, I don't think it's 30 or 35% of new homeless people are Black people. So it's so evident. Our jails are full of Black men and women. And somebody had nerve enough to say, I'm telling you, you just have to do the history on it. I mean, if you really want to know, I would recommend watching 13th on Netflix. It is a wonderful pour into the thread and line of racism, like where it starts and how it's ended up. It's called 13th.
Okay.
It's a Netflix documentary, and it's really good. I would also look at I Am Not Your Negro,
Yeah, I know
which
about
is
that. I know about
largely
that.
around
Yeah.
James Baldwin, and he just had wonderful things to say about the matter. Um, I would also look at Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility. I thought that was a good read for white people. It's a good read for Black people. And I can't remember this author's name. I always Ilaji. I can't remember his name. He's a Black author though, and
Okay.
he wrote uh How to Be Anti-Racist, which is
Okay.
also a really great book. So if you want to know, information is, I mean, what I just mentioned was like a couple of things to get you started. But man, information is overflowing out there for people who really want to know why Black people are in the position that they are in to this day,
Yeah, yeah,
and why
understanding the
everybody
history. Yeah.
seems to hop on the bandwagon of, talking despairingly and treating with disdain and no compassion whatsoever how folks are treating particularly Black people. So or I should say descendants of enslaved people, because my goodness.
Yeah, I wrote that stuff down. I've heard of I'm Not Your Negro. I know he has another one called Exterminate the Boots. And the guy, the filmmaker, one of my
Mhm,
friends at
mhm,
book club was talking about that.
mhm,
But yeah,
mhm.
so have you ever written a book or thought about writing a book?
that
I know
is
I talk
that
about,
is
yeah.
That is one of my great projects for the next few years.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I
thought
know.
I was going to have a book completed by last summer, but just got to go back to the drawing board and like really um give a full-bodied, rich, layered um count of my experience with schizoaffective disorder, bipolar schizoaffective disorder, and the various different things that I've gone through, and how it mirrors the behavior of the larger collective. I just think that that would be eye-opening to some people just coming from a different lens. Um, just coming from somebody who actually has the illness and can still see inside insanity and outside of insanity, and how the two can really intersect. So
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. Well, I think there's a sense of gratitude. There's it's not that you wish the illness, it's like everyone has tendencies to be bipolar or go through depression, and even they can even stay in it for a long time. It's just that their path is not maybe as intense, or they don't need to see a doctor and get meds or go to a
yeah,
hospital.
it's a
But it's like
spectrum.
everyone's got, and I think the assumption would be like if you grow up with really two real strong, healthy parents, and you get in therapy when you're young and you don't get too much childhood trauma, you're probably going to turn out, probably the hospital path wouldn't be your path or something. But also there's a lot of things that we experience that other people don't experience too, in terms of being in touch with a certain level of like pain and suffering. I mean, I think to your point about people not being able to make rent, there's plenty of struggle and pain and suffering in the world. You don't need like a mental disorder, but you know what I mean? Like we know what it's like. And I think that that's why doing these presentations and speaking, doing this podcast, talking, that's why that's so rewarding, because I think what we talked about at the beginning, like you feel like you lose time every time you setbacks, right? And so to be able to talk about it and give people hope, it's almost like, I don't know, you feel like it's like making up for the time that you lost,
Yeah,
either
like I
losing your
kind of feel
mind,
like
or I could have been
if
doing school and I didn't, or I dropped out 5 times because blah blah blah, I had an episode.
yeah. I mean, and those things are kind of hard to reconcile that.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's sweet. Those things are kind of hard to reconcile that um, you know, you're so capable and you wanted to be in school. And in fact, when you were in school, aced everything, part of honor society, just, this is an awesome student. And to be taken out of school. And then when I went back to school, um, things were not the same. I'm still, Excel and all that, but I was different. And then I got sick and or just didn't realize that that was what was happening. So I kept trying to go back to school, go back to school, go back to school, and every single time I would go back to school, I would have an episode
Okay.
every
Yeah.
time, every
Yeah.
time. And
Wow.
so finally, and it was about 5 times, finally, I said, I am obviously not supposed to do this right now. I'm
Right.
obviously not able to do this right now. Let me just not. And so it's been 22 years since I last went to school. And so I have a different brain now, but I also have different motivation. I value it so much more than I did
Did you
when
say
I
20
was young.
years? Sorry,
22.
22-year gap of going to school.
Yep. Yep.
Wow.
And what I have
Okay.
noticed is
Wow.
the first semester, what I noticed was there was a lot of worrying. There was a lot of tension and stress because I felt like I couldn't remember things that I needed to remember them. But what I started seeing toward the end of the semester was that I was getting my memory back, like those neurons were firing again. I was noticing that I was able to get things done. All of the fears and worry that I had, turned out really to be unfounded because every single thing that I needed to get done got done on time. Even if it was like the last minute getting stuff done, it got
Yeah.
done, it was
Yeah.
good, and it was on time. I was in terms of points, one of the highest averages in my class. So seriously, I'm looking forward to this semester and seeing how those neurons and those synapses
Yeah.
are like moving again, so that I can, move forward in my educational journey like I want to. Like I say, I know it's a lofty goal. I'm an older student.
Yeah.
But if I don't shoot for it now, like when am I'm one of those people where I want to see my
Yeah.
potential realized. I want to get to the part on the Maslow's
Yeah.
hierarchy where it's transcendent. I
No,
want to
that's
get there.
awesome. Yeah, I'm thinking about going back to school too, um, in the mental health field, uh, but yeah, it's like I go, oh, I'm 38. I should have. I went to school right before COVID, and then during COVID, I was doing one class, and that was the last time I was in school. So that's like 4 years now, right? Coming up, it was like February. So yeah, yeah, 4 years is COVID. So yeah, I think that's inspiring because, and I think that one of the In Our Own Voice videos, that's one of the ladies' stories, the longer one. She's like, I went
Yes,
back to school to be a social worker, and she was, older or whatever. And so I think it's
yes,
just like, who cares? Just do it. Like so
right.
what? You're in school with people who are younger that might not care. Like I've done the community college thing where you're like, oh man, I feel real old in here. Like everyone's like 18, 19.
Man,
Like,
look, I don't care nothing about that. And quite frankly, I'm like seriously, I
there you
don't
go.
care
I care too much,
nothing.
and that's why I haven't done it.
I mean, I'm like, so I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
care about,
yeah.
being in a
Yeah, that's
classroom with
rad.
younger
Yeah.
people. And in fact, younger people tend to gravitate to me anyway. I did have to put one in check. I did have to put one in
Oh
check.
boy, whoa, what do you mean by gravitate? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, guys. We already got to put explicit on this podcast. So careful. No, I'm
Goodness. No,
kidding.
I mean they just, they like to be with me and around my energy, and they find, that what I'm doing is really a good thing.
Okay, well, if they
Um,
gravitate too much, let me know. I'll beat them up, fly to Washington, D.C. with my broken foot and break my other foot on somebody's head. Just kidding. Wow, that got dark. Oh, that got dark. Too many action movies. No, no. Well, I really appreciate your friendship, and um
oh, I do
I know
too,
you're doing
Jared.
big things and just hearing about your school stuff. And I know that that the voices experience is not always probably easy, but you're continuing to press through it and like use your voice and speak. I love doing presentations with you.
Yeah.
You trained me. I don't even know if we talked about that in the last episode, but you were. I feel like Sally always tells the story. She's like, "Remember you were there and you kept eating a bunch of food," and I was like, "I don't remember that, but I do
Sally's got
remember."
she's got the mind of a steel trap when it
I know
comes to just remembering stuff.
yeah, my memory's okay. I'm really good with like dates and knowing where I am and things, but yeah, I no no no. I do remember it was you and Doug.
Okay.
It was downtown LA, like in that big, I don't know if that's still where NAMI is, that big building.
Yeah, I know
Anyway,
what
I
you're
think
talking
I
about.
did two of them because I did Ending the Silence with Keanu. I did a training for
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I think not to be the main person, but to be like the youth, whatever. And so, but then you were there when it
Yeah.
was you and Doug, and that was like, yeah, we were writing our stories on like we had to write the story before we got there and then writing it on the index card. And I remember like Doug had cards in his hand. Anyway, so that was 2019. So I mean that would have been like that's coming up on like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've been a good friend, and
And you
so
do such a good job too.
thanks, thank you. Well, yeah, I do. I'm trying to spend a little bit of time in my time where I have some time off from work to like work on some writing and. But yeah, so where can people find you? You got the Healing Conversationalist. You're on TikTok too, right? Don't you do like TikTok
Yeah,
stuff?
I
Okay.
I do, but I have to admit my social media presence is just not in any way, shape, form, or fashion ideal right now. I just
Yeah, it's hard to
neglected
keep up with
so
that
so
stuff.
terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that I have to get better at that, but I really would love to get to a point. I mean, because I had someone doing it for me every month, but they were only doing like 4 posts for me across my social media platforms.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Like you
and they
do one
weren't they
video and then it gets posted everywhere, or you do different
yes,
stuff. Oh, okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. One post and it gets posted everywhere. Um, and the person wasn't able to really speak with my voice.
Okay.
And it was difficult for them to do that because they were white. And I really wanted to talk more about things that were um, germane to my community. So um, I'm definitely going to get back. I just have to find a social media man, a good media manager
Yeah.
who can appreciate better my voice.
Oh, I know. We've been talking a while. We'll finish up here. I got you. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with that stuff. I mean, you seem like you're focused on school. Oh, coughing again.
Hold up just one sec. Oh my gosh. Jeez. I apologize.
It's all right. You actually really haven't coughed really at all, except at like the
Right,
beginning. So yeah, I had a
right.
really
And
bad
I was
cough.
just saying to
Yeah,
myself,
yeah,
I was even just saying to myself, oh my gosh, I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I was just saying that to myself because I hadn't coughed in a minute. Of
yeah.
course, here we go.
No, it's going
Right.
around. I had the flu like early December. I missed like a week of work, and then I went back to work, and I still felt kind of sick, like even probably until right before my injury. And then the injury happened, and I still was coughing. I was like, this has been like a month. So now I'm finally not really coughing anymore. I feel like maybe in the last week or so, maybe a little bit longer. And then my chest was hurting when I coughed, but I think some of it was from me running into this in part of the injury. But yeah, it sucks. I know. But we get sick out here in Cali, and I'm like, oh man, I can't imagine winter places. You probably just get sick like that.
Man, that's terrible. That's terrible. But um usually I'm not able to talk for like 2 or 3 minutes after I have a coughing spell. But as you can see, I'm talking. So I think I'm getting better. It might sound horrible and everything right now, and it is. But I think I'm getting better. Before it was just crazy. I'm sorry. I just had a notification pop
No,
up.
you're good. You're good. Well, I'll let you go. I appreciate your time. Obviously, I'll text you and stay in touch with you. Get this published soon. And I just thought of you. Like you've been been getting to do more presentations since I've been home. So I'm like, yeah, yay. So I think
Yeah.
I asked Sally if I'm gonna do Saturday with you. I haven't heard back from her yet. So,
Oh, okay.
but
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
thanks for being on the podcast and
Of course, we didn't talk a whole lot about mental health related things, but
Yeah.
I think we kind of
It's our
intertwined it. I
lives.
mean,
Yeah.
it was like a crazy journey. We took a lot
Yeah.
of twists and turns
Well,
and came around
yeah,
and
I mean, last
uh,
time you kind of shared more of your struggles and stuff, but yeah, I think it's cool I think the racism stuff and the country and politics. I mean, I do think it is connected to mental health for sure because we're not immune from those things. Like you can't just ignore, and maybe people feel like they're too busy to care about it,
yeah,
but
and in a minute, people are going to have no choice but to care about it. So, if I can say
yeah,
anything
yeah.
in closing, it would just be this, that, you know, I want to become braver in sharing my thoughts around how religion and spirituality, politics and social justice, and um, racism are all kind of interconnected, and all the world's woes and
Mm,
social injustices, because that's kind of what we're dealing with right now. Like, seriously, some people are considered valuable and some are just invaluable, considered invaluable. And I'm sorry, from a spiritual perspective, no one human life is more valuable than the other human life if we believe that we were created by God and we're in his image. In fact, there's a verse in the Bible that says God is no respecter of persons.
right,
So, we look at outer, God looks at inner,
right.
right? And so, uh, if we look at our bodies, this organ called the skin, this layer that we're in, that is not as important. That outside, if anything happened to it, is we're done. And it is important, right? It has its importance, but the things that will cut off your life immediately are things that are internal. If your heart, if your lungs, if your kidney, if your brain, any of those things become mortally damaged, then you're done. You
Yeah,
are done. We can get burns, we can get nicks, we can get all kinds of things on our skin. We're going to be okay. Skin is important, obviously. This musculoskeletal thing that we got going on protects those. And look, so we got this outer layer here, and then we got another layer inside that's protecting all of those really important things on the inside. So you got to go deep to get to the stuff that's really important. And we're
hmm,
continuously looking at surface bullshit. I mean, it's
hmm,
just ridiculous. And even when we talk about, politics and we talk about racism and we talk about social justice, we still need to, go through those layers to get to the heart of the matter. And really, it really is about our heart. Like I said, we are putting the cart before the horse. And at the top for me, the things that I like to talk about at the top of that chief is spiritual matters. And then underneath spiritual matters is everything else.
hmm.
Spiritual matters is a league of its own, but from it pours down
Yeah,
every single thing else. So that's the most important stuff. That would be likened unto our heart and our mind, which
hmm,
without either, we just simply don't exist. So while
yeah,
we're running around here existing in all these various different ways, and we have all these ideas and ideologies and whatever else we got going on,
right.
if we don't get to the heart, then we are done. We got to get to taking care of the heart, because a lot of these people walking around got some fucking seriously black screwed up hearts. And I hate to say black heart, but that's kind of what we use.
Yeah, yeah,
They have such a great darkness with them. They
yeah.
really, really do. So much so that light doesn't even get in. It's like a black hole.
Well, yeah, we gotta be try to be lights ourselves, which is hard because you have to face
Exactly.
your own darkness to be a
Exactly.
light. And I think a lot of these mental health challenges force us to, the experience of being suicidal or feeling hopeless. Those are
Exactly.
forms of darkness, and
Exactly. Yes.
we want to try to figure out where it comes from. That's kind of a religious trap
And here's
sometimes.
what I
But
say about
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Now, and this is why I want to get into medicine. And this is the real crux of the matter.
all right,
Is that me included, people who are thinkers want proof. They want evidence of what they're talking about. I just don't want to be
right,
saying things off the top of my head. I want to be able to pull up the receipt, say this is what it is, this is what it is, this is what it is, and this is a reputable source, and this is how they come to the information that they come to, because there are set specific ways in which information and data is gathered and arranged. So if people are using the most respected processes, those are the sources that I want to go to, not these whatever people be trying to do to, so-called bring receipts that back up their positions. Not all data is created equal. I'm telling you that for sure. So people like me want some proof. They want some hard data. They want science. They want to understand, like, what is it that we're really talking about? What is it that we're really saying? This is the whole reason why I want to get into medicine, because I want to be able to say, okay, so you see this thing that we have here in the Bible called the tabernacle pattern that was pitched in the wilderness of Sinai when Moses was out there in the wilderness of Sinai with the children of Israel when they were brought up out of Egypt. Like, if you believe that story at all, uh, you will find it fascinating that the anatomy or the physiology and functioning of the tabernacle pattern lines up jot and tittle with the human body, the
mm-hmm.
functionality and the anatomy. So the anatomy and physiology of the human body matches up with the structure and function of that tabernacle pattern. It is amazing. And if you wanted to hear about that, we could do another podcast. But I don't know
Tomorrow,
enough.
part three. Tomorrow. Just kidding.
I don't know enough. And what I really am so just psyched about is that brain, because that is
Yeah,
just the hub of where everything happens. And so if I can put science and the oldest script that we have about God together and make it make plain sense to a layman, to an elementary student in some
right,
ways, if
right.
I can make it simple, something so complex and multi-layered, make it simple for a person to understand, perhaps they will see that the world's three major religions come out of the same book. It has lasted and stood the test of time. It remains the best-selling book in the world. So it's got to be something to it, because nothing is going to stand the test of time, last that long, and be so influential and impactful on everybody in the world like that, and there not be some way to prove that there's some validity to that. And
Mhm.
I've seen it myself, but I'm telling you, that brain is something with that brain, because that is the most that is the organ in the body that is the least understood by the professionals to this day. And because I come from a spiritual perspective, I really want to be able, and you could say religious too, whatever. But for me, it's not really about religion. I just understand, some things
Mhm.
in the Bible and so on and so forth.
Right.
I was a minister for 17 years, so
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
understand
yeah.
at least a thing or two about what's in there in the Bible. But I really want to, in a very practical way, uh, let people know, okay, God is not fake, right? It's not
Mhm.
something that somebody made up because they wanted to control people. They have used what was already made to control people. They didn't come up with it themselves, right? They didn't come up, and I mean, is God. It wasn't a concept. We wouldn't be here if it were not for this great intelligence making this wonderful instrument called our bodies and chiefly our brains. Like, I'm sorry, but this is the bomb to me. Talking about this kind of stuff and going into more polytechnical detail about it is what I want to do. And I can't do that without understanding the anatomy and physiology of the body and how to take care of abnormal psychology, because my interest is in how psychosis and spirituality like really connect. But I look at it, I have taken it further by looking at how this experience correlates to collective psychosis that really all the world is experiencing, because we're
Yeah,
like, we're
like
gonna
that.
go
Yeah.
along.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna go along with really, kind of terrible things and not look at our heart. And I know I said it, I'm gonna, if I could say a last thing. I've
that's
said my
okay.
last
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's been a long time
It's okay. We
saying
had
my
a good
last
talk.
thing. Yeah,
No, no. Well, you're beautiful, and I
thank you.
appreciate our friendship, and definitely blessed by how NAMI's brought us together. And
Yes, I love that about us.
stay friends forever, even if NAMI comes to an end eventually
I
or
know
something,
that
right?
that is right. That is an
That's how I feel
absolute
about
must.
everyone there. I'm like, I feel like we would stay friends, right? Right? I'll hold you guys to it. No, I want my phone
No,
to
we
blow up
will
now,
definitely
right?
stay friends, Jared.
Of course. But all
Okay.
right, well, I'll let you go. Thank you for being on the podcast. It's double hoodie Monday, so you got two hoodies.
I see
I
you
have
got
a
two
shirt on
hoodies
underneath.
there.
This is called
I had on
Game.
a hoodie yesterday.
Now
Yesterday
it's
was
like
my
I
hoodie
see the
day.
sun coming through, but this is what happens when it rains in SoCal. This is we freak out. We're like, I need 4 layers. Uh-oh, it's cold. So people in winter are like, dude, you need not need you shouldn't say that. That's you're weak. All right. All right. Well, I'll let you go and have a great night. We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Okay.
See ya.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Of
All right.
course.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, we got into some racism conversations, some politic conversations, which doesn't happen a whole lot on this podcast. But as you heard with the solo episode and some episodes that have been thrown out in the last 6 months, I want to go into some new territory. So the topics that Dean and I discussed today are not off the table in the future. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Deanna, for being a great friend to me these last few years that we've gotten to work together with NAMI. Thanks for being on the podcast. End of show notes. All of Deanna's information will be in there. But for Louder Now, as always, loudernowpodcast.com/episodes. You can see all the episodes I've ever done. Please consider making a donation to support the podcast. There's also a link for that. And follow me on Instagram. Email me, jared.deal@gmail.com. Would love to hear what you guys thought of this episode. Would love to hear what you thought about the racism conversation. And yeah, we'll see you next time.